On the 7th year of our marriage, my husband suddenly asked for a divorce. He thought I would lose my mind. To his surprise, I agreed without hesitation. That night, I slept soundly. He, however, knelt beside my bed in the middle of the night. April, can we not divorce? I was just joking. Chapter 1. Get in the car. Samuel's Rolls-Royce stopped precisely in front of me. His driver quickly opened an umbrella and held it over my head. No need. President Ning, my boyfriend will be here to pick me up soon. Samuel Ning stiffened but didn't move. After a moment, unable to outstubborn me, he walked away, his face ashen. A colleague nudged me and whispered, April, I think President Ning likes you. I quickly changed the subject. Hey, isn't your boyfriend here to get you? Hurry up and go. Soon, everyone left the office. I was the only one left standing alone at the entrance. Because I kept my marriage a secret, no one at the company knew I had been married for 6 years. I sent another message to my husband. Ethan, honey, are you almost here? If you're still a while, I'll go back upstairs to wait. 6 minutes later, Ethan replied, sorry, I forgot I was supposed to pick you up. Why don't you just call a ride? I'll reimburse the fare. He sent me a $200 transfer. But it was pouring hard outside, a torrential downpour that brought the city to a halt. Even with surge pricing, no car was available. Every colleague who didn't have a car today was picked up by their spouse. I stared at the blue storm warning on my phone. For the first time, I messaged Ethan asking him to come get me. But clearly, there were more important things in his hands than me. After trying for more than 10 minutes to book a ride, all in vain, I had no choice but to return to the office. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and the rain was relentless. The hundreds of desks in the office were now empty. I sat at my workstation, staring blankly at the rain pouring down outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Before long, my stomach started to grumble. I opened the food delivery app, only to find all services suspended due to the weather. Looks like this storm was worse than expected. I rummaged through a drawer and found some small biscuits. I ate them with mineral water. After just a few bites, a sudden cramp hit my stomach. I had a bad feeling. I went to the restroom and, sure enough, my period had arrived. A bolt of lightning split the sky as the pain intensified. I curled my body up, hunching over to make it more bearable, but the cramps just kept coming stronger. Cold sweat started forming on my forehead. I knew I'd disturb Ethan, but I called him anyway. My stomach really hurts. It feels bad. Could you come pick me up? Ethan paused for a moment. The experiment is at a critical stage right now. Just drink more warm water. I'll come get you when I finish. Before I could say anything more, he had already hung up. The pain shot through me again. More cold sweat dripped down. I had no choice. I'd have to call 911. Given my health, fainting during my period had become routine. I usually carried painkillers with me, but this month, my period had come half a month early. I was completely unprepared. Gritting my teeth, I returned to the phone screen. Just as I dialed the first digit, a wave of dizziness hit me. Cold sweat poured like a waterfall. This is bad. That was the last thought in my head before my eyes closed. Chapter 2. When I woke up, I was already lying in Samuel's office. President Ning. It's nothing serious, just menstrual syndrome. Some people have weaker constitutions and feel more severe pain. The doctor explained. This kind of situation can be quite dangerous. Just recently, there was a case of a girl going into shock and dying from severe period cramps. The doctor handed me some medicine. You should be more careful in the future, better to be prepared. I nodded and thanked him, obediently swallowing the pills. President Ning, if there's nothing else, I'll wait for you outside. Samuel nodded in the shadows. The doctor and driver left the office. I felt a bit awkward, but still forced myself to thank Samuel. Thank you, President Ning. Just as I stood up to leave, Samuel's voice came sharply from the shadows. Team leader song. Didn't you say someone was coming to pick you up? There was a clear tone of anger in his voice. He had something urgent come up. As I said that, I nearly fled the room in embarrassment. But I didn't dare defy Samuel, because I saw him step out from the shadows. His face sharp and intimidating. His voice was low and cold. April's song. If you don't like me pursuing you, You can just say so. There's no need to pretend you have a boyfriend. I wasn't pretending. I stood up. I really do have someone. I gave a polite bow. I'm sorry, President Ning. Thank you again. But I need to go. As I turned and left Samuel's office, the sound of thunder and torrential rain exploded in my ears. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the rain showed no signs of stopping. From Samuel's office radio came a weather report. Due to the heavy rainstorm, all public transportation has been suspended. Citizens are advised to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. I stopped in my tracks. Behind me, Samuel called out, "Have some dinner first." I had the chef prepare food and send it over. Should be enough to get through tonight. I wanted to stubbornly decline. But the loud rumble of my stomach reminded me that being sensible was sometimes the smart move. I turned back and saw that Samuel's enormous desk was now covered with over a dozen dishes, and even a 3-tiered pure cream cake. "Happy birthday!" Samuel popped open a bottle of champagne. Then he gave a sheepish smile. "Oops. I forgot, you don't drink." He poured himself a glass, then picked up another cup and filled it halfway with hot water. "Happy 30th birthday." I was stunned. "How did you know?" Samuel pulled out a chair and sat down as if it were nothing. When someone truly wants to know something, they will find out. Wouldn't you agree? His deep gaze made me dizzy for a moment. Everyone at the company said Samuel's eyes were dangerously seductive. I'd always been too busy with work and taking care of Ethan to ever really look at him. But now, being stared at like this, I felt an odd tingle run down my spine. No wonder all the young women in the company called Samuel the walking temptation. I was starving. I pulled out a chair and started digging in. Halfway through the meal, I received a message from Ethan. "April, come home. I need to talk to you." Concerned about the storm, I replied, "Are you coming to the office? It's pouring outside. Be careful driving." But Ethan told me he was already home, he'd taken a shower and was about to go to bed. At that moment, I was genuinely stunned. To get home from his lab, he would have to pass by my office. But it never occurred to him to pick me up. Before that message, I had never felt such coldness in my heart. At that moment, I realized this marriage had finally reached its dead end. Chapter 3. Samuel arranged for his driver to take me home. This time, I didn't refuse. With all public transportation suspended, there was no point in being stubborn. "Thank you for making the arrangements, President Ning." Samuel curled his lips slightly and opened the car door for me. I caught sight of a rare, beautiful curve on his lips. "I'm only 3 years older than you. Just call me Samuel." I got into the back seat, only to see him get in as well. For some reason, I tensed up immediately. Usually, as the CEO of the Ning Group, Samuel stayed on the 99th floor in his executive office. As a team leader, I might have meetings with him once a month, but with over a dozen department heads and 30-something team leads, someone like me was worlds away from him. So sitting this close, side by side with him, I felt completely overwhelmed, not just because of his tall 6 feet 1 inch frame, but because of his absolute authority within the Ning Group. I unconsciously shifted a bit away from him. Samuel noticed, but he simply sat there, composed and commanding, and told the driver, "Take Miss Song home." As the car pulled away, a sharp pain surged through my abdomen. I clenched the leather seat. Samuel handed me a painkiller and a cup of warm water. "The doctor said you need to take another one 30 minutes after eating." I held my stomach and gave him a grateful glance. He didn't say another word, just closed his eyes, seemingly resting. The rain outside got even heavier. The wipers were spinning like crazy. The sound of the rain hitting the car roof was loud, like hailstones pounding down. I opened my eyes. The side mirror was completely white from the fog. I started to feel a little uneasy. I considered suggesting we just turn back to the office. But then Ethan's message arrived. "Almost home? Don't make me wait too long. I have to be in the lab by 8 tomorrow. The clothes I need are still in the bathroom. You need to take care of that. Also, make sure you've matched the right tie with tomorrow's suit." My head began to throb. Ever since Ethan started working at the research institute after we got married, I had been in charge of everything at home. This year, after being promoted to lab director, he hadn't done a single load of laundry, not even washed his own underwear. I'd spoiled him too much. I sighed. feeling like I'd reached the very edge of my patience with this single-in-marriage lifestyle. Maybe we should just get divorced. That thought crossed my mind for the first time. I wanted to scream at him that I was done living a life where I was the only one who picked up the pieces. Done being the one who had to go through surgery alone, check into the hospital alone, and hire a nurse because my husband never showed up. But Ethan never saw things that way. He often said, "If it's something money can solve, why does it have to be you by my side?" But isn't marriage supposed to be about companionship, mutual support, and shared struggles? As for money, sure, I wasn't as rich as Ethan, but I worked hard and earned enough to support myself just fine. So why was cooking and laundry my responsibility and not his? Was it because I was expected to be the ideal wife, the perfect woman? I rubbed my temples as the pain gradually faded. Along with it, my last bit of faith in this marriage disappeared too. Bang! A loud crash jolted me. We'd been in an accident. My head slammed forward into the seat in front. Everything inside the car flew into the air. "Watch out!" I heard Samuel shout in panic. A sharp piece of glass was flying straight toward my eye. Then suddenly, I was pulled into a large, protective embrace. The car skidded to a stop by the roadside. When I finally came to my senses, I felt a strange wetness in my palm. I opened it. A splash of blood. It was from Samuel's back. The shard of glass had pierced into his shoulder blade. Chapter 4. Are you okay? Samuel and I spoke almost at the same time. He let go of me and looked nervously into my eyes. "I'm fine. What about you?" Samuel reached back to touch his shoulder. The doctor, who had been sitting in the front seat, came around with a portable medical kit and carefully removed the sharp shard of glass from his back. "President Ning, you'll probably need a couple of stitches." Seeing my apologetic expression, Samuel gave a relaxed smile. "A wound like this is nothing to me, but for your eye, it could have been fatal." He asked the driver, "Can the car still run?" The driver, only now recovering from the shock of having narrowly escaped a serious accident, replied, "Yes, President Ning, it can." The reins let up a bit. "Let's take Miss Song home first, then head to the hospital." The driver glanced at the hospital just ahead. "President Ning, shouldn't we take care of your wound first?" Samuel didn't answer. He simply gestured for the car to go. The driver didn't argue further. The car continued forward until we arrived at the gate of my residential complex. Just before I got out, Samuel instructed the driver to pack up the medication properly. "Make sure you take it. Get some rest early. Good night." Chapter 5. The rain had mostly stopped. I held the umbrella with my left hand and carried the medicine the doctor had packed in my right. In my mind, Samuel's tall and cool silhouette lingered. When I first joined Ning Group, I wasn't married yet, so I spent most of my time in the company lab. Back then, Ning Group was competing with an American lab for a major project. We were practically living in the company 24/7. Samuel had just lost both of his parents and had taken over the company. He desperately needed to succeed in this project to establish his footing in the corporation. During that period, I often woke up slumped over a lab bench and saw Samuel still sitting in front of a wall of computer screens, analyzing data. There would always be a cup of 70% sweet coffee on the desk, just the way I liked it, and a slice of egg yolk toast. I always assumed it was the admin staff who prepared it, until one day, a colleague from administration said, "Coffee at 6 in the morning? Please." We're all still asleep at that hour. Later, when the lab needed to repair the security cameras, I found out that the coffee and toast from those days had all been prepared by Samuel. He would even bend over while I was sleeping and quietly watch me for a long time, but he never once mentioned it. At the time, as our research progressed, my relationship with Ethan also moved quickly toward marriage. I was so caught up in the romance and sweetness of it all that I never gave Samuel's gestures much thought. After all, I was the core technical lead of his research team. A little extra care for a key employee didn't seem unusual. Then came the day our experiment succeeded. We flew to the US to finalize the project, and on the return flight to China, Samuel fell asleep, and his bag tipped over. A sketchbook fell out. When I picked it up to help him, I saw what was inside. It was filled with sketches of me typing at the computer, me sleeping at the desk, drooling, Me tugging my hair in frustration after failing an experiment, my hair a complete mess. And on the first page, Samuel had written a note. April, I really, truly like you. I panicked and slammed the sketchbook shut, shoving it back into his bag. The next day, I handed in my resignation, but Samuel came to find me. I think Miss Song misunderstood. He said, the person in that sketchbook isn't you. Don't flatter yourself. He told me he liked someone named April. What a coincidence. She even looked a bit like me. So he'd taken a little extra care of me, subconsciously. But don't worry, you're not her. Maybe to avoid any further suspicion. Samuel transferred to the U.S. headquarters and stayed there for the next 4 years. I only saw his composed, decisive face during our monthly video meetings. Until last year, Samuel returned. Chapter 6. When I got home, Ethan just happened to be stepping out of the bedroom in his slippers. He looked sleepy, but still noticed the blood on my hand. What happened to your hand? That's when I realized Samuel's blood had dried in my palm, turning black and crusted. Oh, I was in a car accident on the way back. I folded up my umbrella. Ethan filled a cup of hot water at the dispenser. As he walked toward me, I thought it was for me, so I reached out, but he walked past and sat on the sofa, sipping it himself. With this kind of heavy rain, it's dangerous, but as long as you're okay, go wash up first. I need to talk to you in a bit. When I came out of the bathroom, there was a divorce agreement sitting on the glass coffee table. April, let's get a divorce. Ethan took off his wedding ring from his left ring finger. He leaned forward, his tone serious and deliberate. I know what I said earlier wasn't fair to you, but I need to be honest, I cheated. I fell in love with my assistant. We haven't done anything yet because I didn't want her to be labeled as the other woman. I remember we promised each other when we got married that if we ever fell out of love, we'd be honest about it. I'm keeping that promise. April, I'm telling you the truth. I gently pressed the spot on my palm where Samuel's blood had been. I thought about how he shielded me during the accident. How many stitches did he end up needing? For some reason, my mind flashed back to that dinner in his office. He said nothing in the dark, peeling shrimp and placing them silently onto my plate. And further back, when he first returned to China, he looked at me and said, "It's been 5 years. You're still not married." I had my secretary check. No man has ever been seen picking you up after work. If you'll allow it, I'd like to pursue you seriously now. He admitted that 5 years ago, he'd lied about the sketchbook, saying it wasn't me because he was afraid I would resign. I told him I had a boyfriend, but Samuel no longer believed it. Later, when my dad was in a car accident, I asked Ethan to contact the dean of his institute, the most renowned brain surgeon in the country. But Ethan shook his head. April, didn't we agree to keep our marriage a secret for now? I'm not the kind of person who asks for favors. If I suddenly reach out to Dean Jean, he'll get suspicious. After Ethan refused, I didn't know who else to turn to. Samuel somehow found out what had happened and took care of it himself. He got Dean Jean to perform the surgery. For an entire week, he went to the hospital to discuss the case with the dean. And Ethan? He stayed in the lab the whole time. Honestly, that was when I first thought about divorcing Ethan. But my dad told me, if you divorce Ethan, you're no longer my daughter. He had always been satisfied with Ethan. April, he couldn't be there. But didn't he transfer 200,000 yuan to cover the surgery? He's at a crucial stage in his career. You should be supporting him. Facing parents who refused to let me divorce, I compromised. But the real reason wasn't just to please them. I still had feelings for Ethan. He had hurt me, but I still had enough love left to give him another chance. So I stayed. I gave our marriage one last shot. I hoped, truly hoped, that one day Ethan would keep his word. That once he became department head, he would finally acknowledge our marriage publicly. By then, he once promised, everything I've withheld from you emotionally, I'll give back in full. Then, I thought back over everything that had happened tonight. I had begged Ethan to come pick me up, but he had gone home alone. He had taken a hot shower, sipped warm tea, and laid in bed reading a book. Meanwhile, I had nearly passed out from menstrual pain and almost lost my eye in a car accident on the way home. Again, I remembered that moment, before I could even react, when Samuel threw himself in front of me to block the shard of glass. I looked at Ethan's expectant face. He was wringing his hands nervously. April, I hope we can part peacefully. Don't make this harder than it has to be. We were husband and wife. I hope you understand how I feel. A marriage without love is just a living grave if we keep dragging it on. As I stood up, Ethan quickly followed, grabbing my wrist. April, don't be stubborn, okay? I promised Miriam we'd get the divorce signed today. I even found a guy who can fast-track us through the civil registry tomorrow afternoon. I simply turned to him and said, "Don't I need a pen to sign the papers?" "Let go, I'll go get one." My calmness caught Ethan completely off guard. He reached out to touch my forehead. "April, are you in shock or something? You don't want to ask me anything? You're just going to sign?" I shrugged. What else am I supposed to do? I walked toward the study. It would be a lie to say I didn't feel a trace of bitterness. But seeing our marriage come to this point, it felt inevitable. Ethan had just spoken the words first. What stung wasn't the divorce itself. It was how love always starts like a wildfire, but ends so quietly. I let out a bitter laugh and chose a fountain pen with ink, then walked back into the living room. "Is it here?" I asked Ethan. He seemed surprised at how easily I agreed. He pressed down on my hand. "Don't you want to think it over a little more? Or if you want to yell at me or hit me, I'll take it. Or ask me anything. I'll answer every question." "Oh, I'm not interested. This is the spot, right?" I found the signature line and wrote my name with solemn precision. Then I placed the pen on the table and looked at Ethan. "If there's nothing else, I'll go to bed." I got up, went into the bathroom, and showered. Then I entered the master bedroom. I threw a pillow at Ethan, who was sitting on the sofa, shut the door behind me, and lay down on the bed. At first, I thought I might feel anxious. Fainting, a car crash, divorce. Any one of those things would shake most people. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Yes, I was finally saying goodbye to the loneliness that had haunted my marriage. Chapter 7. As soon as I signed the papers, Ethan immediately called his assistant. "Miriam." "Yes." "She signed it. I told you, I'll be with you openly and honestly. Get some rest. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll propose to you, maybe even tomorrow night." "Miriam, you're not the other woman. We never did anything that disrespected the marriage." As I was drifting off to sleep, I could still hear Ethan talking on the phone in the living room, his voice brimming with long-restrained relief and excitement. Strangely, I felt happy for him too. The loneliness of marriage is a terrifying thing. It's like sitting on a fully packed boat, surrounded by the people closest to you, yet no one notices that you've drowned in a glass tank full of rotten fish. I felt relief for both of us. In that feeling of freedom and release, I fell into a deep sleep. I didn't know how long I'd slept. But suddenly I was jolted awake by someone violently shaking me. When I opened my eyes, Ethan was staring at me with a furious expression. "It's the middle of the night. Why are you sleeping so soundly?" I looked out at the pitch-black sky, groggy and annoyed. "What are you yelling for? It's the middle of the night." Ethan's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth. "April, we're getting divorced, and you can still sleep like a rock? You were even snoring." I pinched my nose. "No way. I sleep really quietly. No chance I was snoring." "You were snoring. I was right there on the couch and heard everything." "April, do you even have a heart? 7 years of marriage ending, and you don't even care?" Having been shaken awake from a deep sleep, I was already annoyed. I snapped back at him. "Why are you yelling at me? Let's get the facts straight. It's you who cheated. You who asked for the divorce." "I didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't throw a fit. I just signed your damn divorce papers without a word. What else do you want from me?" Ethan froze, at a loss for words. After a long pause, he slumped into a chair and said quietly, "I can't sleep. Can you just talk with me for a bit?" I pulled a pillow over my head. "Don't be ridiculous. I have to be at work by 8. Ethan fiddled with his fingers. "I'll drive you." I pulled the pillow away and glared at him. "Are you out of your mind? Don't forget you asked for the divorce." Ethan stood up and walked over to the bed. I kicked him. Get away from me. Holding his sore knee, Ethan muttered. We haven't finalized the divorce yet, we're still legally married. Then, angrily, you seriously have nothing you want to say to me? You don't even want to ask why I cheated? I looked at him for a moment. If I told you I don't care, would you believe me? I turned over in bed. I heard your little phone call before I fell asleep. And by the way, you don't need to pay that shady agent to skip the line at the Civil Bureau. Those guys are unreliable anyway. I've already contacted someone from the office and locked in an official appointment at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Just make sure you take the day off. Ethan squinted at me suspiciously, clearly not buying it. Oh, I see what this is. April, you're playing hard to get, aren't you? Acting indifferent to get my attention. Stir my curiosity. Well, guess what? It won't work. Not on me. You say you've booked 2 p.m. Fine, I'll be there at 2. Let's see if you end up crying and begging me not to go through with it. I couldn't help but laugh. If that's what you want to believe, knock yourself out. Anything else you want to say? If not, then get out and let me sleep. Ethan, halfway out of his pants, said. I don't believe it. A woman like you, who used to be so obsessed with me, you're really going to hand me over to someone else just like that? He tried to climb into bed. I kicked him hard right between the legs. Ethan collapsed, groaning in pain and barely able to get up. If you don't want to become a eunuch, then get the hell out. Grimacing, Ethan clutched himself and backed toward the door. Fine, keep acting tough. Don't come crying to me tomorrow when you're begging me not to go through with the divorce. I couldn't be bothered to argue. I slammed the door shut and locked it with a loud click. Lying back in bed, I thought for a long time. I had once longed so badly for Ethan to love me, to care for me. I was doing experiments too, but I knew he had a sensitive stomach, so I got up every day at 6 to make him breakfast. Picked out his clothes for the day. I came home later than him, but still did the laundry. Tidied the mess he left all over the place. Dusted off the cabinets. Ethan acted like a guest in his own home, while I played the role of both career woman and dutiful wife. At first, he used to praise me, said I was the perfect combination of competent and caring, but over time, he got used to it. Once, a tissue fell on the floor. I left it there on purpose. 1 month later, it was still there, in the exact same spot. I was never invited to any of his celebration dinners. He wouldn't even go shopping with me. Our marriage was treated like one of his research projects, classified and hidden. Only heaven knew. I knew. And maybe our parents. To everyone else, it didn't exist. I suddenly laughed. Laughed at my own endurance. How had I survived the crushing loneliness of these 7 years of marriage? Chapter 8. For the past 7 years of our marriage, I always got up at 6 a.m. to make breakfast for Ethan. But after signing the divorce papers, I slept in for the first time until 7 a.m. If Samuel's secretary hadn't messaged me, telling me to be at the hospital by 8 for an emergency meeting, I probably would have slept straight through till 10. I rushed through my morning routine, grabbed a bag, and headed for the door, only to be stopped by Ethan. You're just leaving? Aren't you going to eat breakfast? I thought he wanted me to make breakfast before I left. I turned around, ready to scold him, but saw Ethan standing at the kitchen doorway, holding a steaming bowl of noodle soup. What kind of performance was this? 7 years of marriage and he never once stepped foot in the kitchen. Now that I've agreed to the divorce, he suddenly starts learning to make breakfast? Figures. Gotta impress the new bride, right? Wow, you and your assistant must really be true love. Up early practicing how to make breakfast. Looks like being a mistress comes with real perks. I slipped on my heels as I spoke. Honestly, it would be a lie to say I didn't feel a twinge of bitterness. A man I'd been married to for 7 years, now cooking for another woman. How could I not feel something? But that emotion quickly gave way to a wave of disgust. I took a deep breath and reached for the doorknob, but Ethan came up and held it down. April, you've got it all wrong. I made this for you. I got up at 6 this morning to thaw the beef, then braised it with spices for an hour. You love braised beef noodle soup, don't you? I looked at the bowl in his hands. The beef was tender, and the rich aroma hit me immediately. I could smell the deep, savory flavor before even tasting it. I sniffed, almost involuntarily. Ethan noticed and quickly pulled me toward the dining table. He handed me a pair of chopsticks. It's the perfect temperature right now. Come on, eat before work. He served himself a bowl too and sat across from me. I hesitated, but then I thought, we're already divorced. Might as well part on a decent note. I've made him this dish so many times over the years. What harm could there be in eating the one bowl he made for me? So I sat down and dug in. It's actually really good, I said, setting down my chopsticks with satisfaction. Then I glanced at the clock. Almost 7:30. If I didn't hurry, I'd be late. I stood, grabbed my bag, and reminded Ethan as I headed out the door. 2 p.m. at the civil office. Make sure you take the time off. Just as I reached the elevator, Ethan came running after me in a panic. I'll drive you, he said. What? I turned to him, surprised. I'll drive you, he repeated, pressing the elevator button. When the doors opened, I stepped in. Ethan pressed the button for the underground parking level. In our 7 years of marriage, Ethan had never once driven me to work, even though my company was right along his commute. He always said that since we decided to keep the marriage a secret, we had to stick to it completely. If I drive you to work and your colleagues see, word will spread. And if it gets back to the lab, the cover's blown. Our director doesn't like promoting people involved in a relationship. If I want to advance, I can't risk that. So, for the sake of Ethan's career, I had agreed. At one point, I even believed that our secret marriage was the most thoughtful compromise Ethan had made for our relationship. After all, he didn't have to marry me, but over countless days where we couldn't go out together, couldn't even grab a simple meal in public, I came to realize, April, was the one who had sacrificed the most in this marriage. Now, finally free from the loneliness of marriage, I was ready to charge alone into a new life. And suddenly, Ethan did something he had never done before. He offered to drive me to work. No need, I said, pressing the button for the first floor. If someone from the company sees us, it'll be hard to explain. What I meant was, I didn't want to explain our relationship to my coworkers, especially not when we were about to be divorced. Better to maintain the image of a single woman to the end. Strangely, my mind drifted to Samuel, but Ethan thought I was trying to avoid causing him trouble. He canceled the first floor selection and insisted. What's so hard to explain? Just tell them I'm your husband. I don't mind. I shook my head firmly. Ethan, you misunderstood. I don't want to tell them you're my husband, even if we're still married on paper. You and I both know we've already signed the divorce agreement. By 2 p.m. today, this marriage will be over. So with that in mind, I'd rather not create unnecessary drama or gossip for myself. Ethan's brows furrowed instantly. I recognized that look. It was his prelude to getting angry. He grabbed my wrist tightly. April, you're seriously going through with this? Didn't I tell you last night? I was just joking. The elevator reached the first floor. I shook his hand off and tried to walk out, but Ethan yanked me back hard. He pressed me against the elevator wall, leaned in, trying to kiss me. I shoved him away, forcefully. I'm sorry, Ethan gasped, breathing heavily. His voice was low, almost pleading. The elevator reached the basement level. His car was parked right outside the door. Just then, I got a call from Samuel's secretary. Team leader Song, the meeting is about to start. Are you almost here? Ethan had already driven the car forward and opened the passenger door for me, the seat I had once imagined sharing with him proudly. As husband and wife, I was busy replying to the message and didn't respond. Instead, I opened the back door and got in without a word. Chapter 9. I told Ethan to drop me off at the hospital entrance, about 200 meters from the main gate. There was a well-known lamb bun shop. Samuel loved those buns. While I stood in line, Ethan walked over, pinching his nose. April, I remember you hate lamb buns. You always said they smell too gamey. Why are you here, of all places, so early in the morning? And who are you going to see at the hospital? I honestly thought Ethan had lost it. When we were still married, he was terrified of being seen in public with me. Now that we were divorcing, he suddenly didn't care about being seen together, carrying the buns. I ignored him. Go to work. Will you? Didn't you say you had a meeting at 8? I kept walking forward. Ethan trailed behind, refusing to give up. I heard his voice, irritated and suspicious. I really want to see who you're visiting at the hospital. April's song. Are you seeing another man behind my back? No wonder you agreed to the divorce so fast yesterday. You didn't even cry, didn't even fight me on it. That doesn't make sense. April. I'm starting to think, maybe you never even loved me. While Ethan was throwing his tantrum, I walked straight into Samuel's private hospital room. Does your stomach still hurt? How's your back? We asked the questions almost in unison, concern filling both our voices. You're April's boss? Ethan cut in, sneering at Samuel. And you are? Samuel didn't even glance up. He calmly took the lamb buns from me with both hands, focused and unbothered. April is my wife, Ethan said stiffly. As her boss, I suggest you learn to set some professional boundaries. Oh, Samuel finally looked up, eyeing Ethan. But team leader songs always claimed she's single. Do you have any proof she's your wife? His tone was steady, his gaze unreadable. Ethan opened his mouth to reply. Just then, several people entered the room. Dean Jean. Ethan recognized one of them immediately and gave a respectful bow. Minister Song, what are you doing here? Don't you have a meeting at 8 this morning? Ethan responded carefully. Something came up. I already informed my team. I'll head over shortly. Dean Jean nodded, glanced at me, and then turned to Samuel with a smile. President Ning. So this is the young lady you're interested in? She seems like a fine person. I believe your father, like me, would fully support this marriage. Then he reached out his hand to me. Pleasure to meet you, team leader April. Not knowing what was happening, I quickly reached out and shook his hand. Samuel gave a cryptic smile and pulled out a ring box. April, after last night's accident, I've thought about a lot of things. 5 years ago, I was too scared to admit I liked you. This time, I don't want to run from my feelings anymore. I immediately stood up, trying to stop him. Was he serious? A proposal out of nowhere? This had to be some kind of joke. Just as I was about to protest, I saw someone standing behind Dean Jean. It was a young woman, Miriam, Ethan's mistress, even though I had already decided to divorce. Seeing the other woman face to face for the first time still made me feel utterly humiliated. So, I smiled sweetly and accepted the ring from Samuel. I fully expected Ethan to explode. Sure enough, before I could say a word, Ethan swatted the ring box out of Samuel's hand. If you want to be with April, I'm the first to say no. Dean Jean looked surprised. You say no? Minister Ethan, President Ning and Miss Song are a perfect match, talented and beautiful. He's unmarried. She's unmarried. What right do you have to interfere? Then he turned to Samuel with a polite smile. President Ning, please forgive him. Our Minister Song's been stuck in the lab too long. He's not very good with words. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder. Ethan, I think you've been in the lab too much, overworked yourself and fried your brain. You really need to rest more. My daughter already told me about your relationship. I don't have any objections. Once you two get married, I can finally pass the torch as dean. And that's when it hit me. The reason Ethan insisted on keeping our marriage a secret wasn't just about his career advancement. It was because the key to his promotion was Dean Jin's daughter, Miriam. The disgust I felt was overwhelming. I had thought the man I loved had simply cheated. I hadn't realized he was using two women's futures to pave the way for his own career. Ethan looked at me, visibly uncomfortable. Samuel, meanwhile, acted as if nothing had happened. He gently took my hand. I've already told my parents how I feel about you. If you're willing, come over for dinner tonight. I looked into Samuel's eyes, trying to figure out what he was really thinking. What was he up to now? Ethan couldn't hold back any longer. He smacked Samuel's hand away. Who the hell do you think you are? Why should April have dinner with you? Samuel stared at Ethan like he was crazy. And who do you think you are? To stop April from being with me? That was the last straw for Ethan, unable to stand Samuel's confident tone. He pulled something out of his pocket, a marriage certificate, and shoved it in Samuel's face. This is why. Because April and I are legally married. Miriam tried to stop him, grabbing at his arm, but it was too late. Dean Jean saw the certificate in Ethan's hand and pointed at him. What's the meaning of this? Then he yanked Miriam toward him. Miriam, didn't you tell me Ethan was proposing to you today? Miriam covered her ears and shook her head. Dad, don't ask me. I don't know anything. Then, humiliated and furious, she grabbed Ethan by the arm. You, outside. Now. Chapter 10. Even through the closed hospital room door, Miriam's sharp voice rang out loud and clear. Ethan, what the hell is this? Didn't you say the divorce was already settled? Give me an explanation. Ethan's voice came in apologetically. April signed the papers. Yes, but I changed my mind. Miriam, I still love her. I can't go through with the divorce. Then what am I to you? The entire lab knows you were proposing to me today. And now you tell everyone you're already married to April? How do you expect me to face them? How do you expect my father to face them? Ethan pleaded with her in pain. I don't know what to do about you. I just know I can't let April be with Samuel. We're still legally married. Samuel won't get the chance. I'm sorry. Miriam, you can hit me, yell at me, do whatever you want, but I won't let April leave me. A long silence. Then, a loud, stinging slap. Ethan, you bastard. Then came Miriam sobbing, deep and muffled. Dean Jean leaned on his cane and turned to Samuel. My apologies, President Ning. You had to witness such a mess. Then, facing the lab staff, what are you all standing around for? Get back to the lab. The group quickly filed out. As they left, I heard whispers. Miriam was the mistress. Ethan cheated during the marriage. The room quickly emptied out. Samuel, unfazed, continued eating his lamb buns as if nothing had happened. He didn't look surprised at all about my marriage. In fact, he didn't even seem interested. If there's nothing else, President Ning, I'll take my leave. I placed the ring box gently on the nightstand beside his bed. Samuel closed the lid and after a while, said softly, Feel better now? What? I looked at him, but when I saw the glint of mischief in his eyes, I suddenly understood. Everything just now was intentional. He was too smart. There's no way he'd suddenly blurt out a confession to me in front of Dean Jean without a reason. But how did he know I was married to Ethan? Samuel twirled the ring box between his fingers, then explained patiently. Dean Jean heard I was injured and immediately brought the lab staff to visit me. As you know, Ning Group funds a lot of labs. After a few polite words, Dean Jean happily told me his daughter was getting proposed to today. He even invited me to attend the wedding when the time comes. He said his future son-in-law was a brilliant department head, and even showed me a photo. I was still staring at him, confused. Samuel stopped toying with the ring and looked at me directly. I saw that man in the photo 5 years ago. It was in a private room at a luxury senior care facility. The elderly woman living there had the last name Sunday. My heart skipped a beat. A senior care home? Samuel nodded. Why were you at a place like that? I asked, hesitating. Because my grandma was living there too. His voice softened, and his eyes turned red. She has Alzheimer's. I used to visit her often. The lady next door, Mrs. Sun, she'd always pull me aside to talk. She'd proudly show me her granddaughter and grandson-in-law's wedding photo. I froze in place. So you've known for 5 years that I was married? Samuel said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. His eyes dimmed with a quiet sadness. I suddenly remembered that sketchbook I had found on the flight back from the US 5 years ago, the one filled with drawings of me. Inside, there was even a note. April, I like you. But Samuel had denied it back then, and soon after, he left for America. As if sensing what I was thinking, Samuel spoke again. His beautifully shaped lips uttered the regrets of the past. When I found out you were married, I decided to bury my feelings for you. The project had reached a critical phase. I didn't want my feelings for you to affect your career. And more importantly, I didn't want my emotions to ruin our opportunity to break into the US market. Then why did you come back 5 years later? I asked. If I were still married to Ethan, I would have walked out already without hesitation. My upbringing had always taught me a woman should spend her life with just one man, but Ethan was the one who asked for the divorce. So now, I had nothing left to feel guilty about. Remember what I said earlier about Ning Group funding several labs? 5 years ago, I returned to China for a meeting. Dean Jean invited me to tour their lab. In the stairwell, I ran into Dean Jin's daughter, Miriam, and Minister Song. What they were doing in public was downright disgraceful. At first, I thought maybe I was mistaken, but later I saw Ethan's name in the lab staff directory. Samuel looked over at me. When he saw that I wasn't showing any particular reaction, he went on, "That's when I made my decision to return to China. I wanted to pursue you, to expose Ethan, because in my eyes, he didn't deserve to be your husband. In fact, he didn't even deserve to be called a man." It was only then that I realized what this morning had really been, a deliberate provocation. Samuel had orchestrated everything to push Ethan's buttons, right in front of Dean Jean. "I need to take the afternoon off at 2 p.m. That was all I said after hearing Samuel's full confession. Samuel's gaze followed me, visibly nervous. "April, you're not quitting Ning Group just because I came clean about all this, are you?" I stood up. "No, I have an appointment at 2 p.m. to finalize my divorce." Samuel visibly relaxed, his brow easing, lips curving into the faintest smile. "If it's for your divorce, you can take as many days off as you need." Chapter 11. When I stepped out of the hospital room, Ethan was leaning against the hallway wall. A bright red slap mark burned across his left cheek. "I've already taken the afternoon off. You should get ready too," I said calmly. I walked past him. He followed. I stopped in my tracks. "You really want me yelling cheating bastard at you in public like some soap opera villain?" Ethan lowered his head, frozen in place. But the moment I walked away, he silently trailed behind me again. "You're unbelievable," I snapped, glaring at him. But Ethan only kept apologizing. "Baby, I know I was wrong. I never should have joked about divorce. I brought the divorce agreement. Let's tear it up right now, okay? Let's not get divorced." Just then, Miriam came running over. She snatched the divorce papers from Ethan and shouted, "Everyone in the lab knows now, I'm the other woman. You cheated on your wife. If you don't marry me, how am I supposed to show my face again? And if you want to keep working under my father, you have to marry me." Dean Jean stood nearby, sighing nonstop. It was obvious Miriam was dead set on marrying Ethan, and as her father, even Dean Jean seemed helpless. I thought Ethan would give in. He had spent 6 years working tirelessly in that lab, all to inherit Dean Jin's position someday. With success so close, how could he throw it all away? I let out a cold laugh and picked up my pace. But to my surprise, Ethan rejected Miriam again. "I'm sorry, I can't marry you." He took off his department head badge. "Tell Dean Jean I'm resigning. I'll come pick up my things later." Then he jogged to catch up with me. Fed up, I asked Samuel's bodyguards to kick him out. "Ethan, I still have work to do. If you don't show up at the Civil Bureau today, get ready to be sued." But Ethan still wouldn't believe I was serious. He ran after my car, shouting, "April, I know you're still mad, but you can't just walk away from all these years together. You said I was the love of your life. You even agreed to keep our marriage a secret for my career. There's no way you'd give up that easily." I watched Ethan chasing the car. He got smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror, until he disappeared into a single dot on the road. I remembered our long-distance days back in grad school. He used to see me off at the train station. He'd run after the train every time it started to move. Back then, I believed those goodbyes were temporary, that they led to better reunions. But today, I knew this goodbye was forever. Ethan refused to cooperate with the divorce. After losing his job at the lab, he started going to the nursing home to care for my grandmother with Alzheimer's. I had begged him countless times to visit her when we were married. He always refused, too afraid someone would find out about us. Not once did he go. Now, trying to prove himself, he bathed her, did her laundry, combed her hair every single day. During the divorce lawsuit, my dad had a stroke. I didn't tell Ethan, but somehow, he found out. He started showing up at the hospital every day, changing diapers, feeding him, doing everything. My dad ended up trying to persuade me to take Ethan back. All men mess up sometimes. Ethan truly regrets what he did. He said, I was so angry. I didn't visit my dad for a whole month. Eventually, my father saw I was dead serious. He told Ethan to stop coming. As a man, he said, I don't want to embarrass you in public, but April played me a recording of your call to Dean Jin's daughter on the day you asked her for a divorce. If I told her to forgive you after that, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself for the rest of my life. That's when Ethan finally backed down. He packed his bags and left. 3 days later, he agreed to the divorce. Chapter 12. Eventually, I resigned from Ning Group. Samuel didn't try to stop me. He simply wished me a bright and promising future. He then led Ning Group into acquiring European companies, meaning the company had now expanded not only from Asia to the US, but also into Europe. Because of my outstanding contributions at Ning Group, I received an offer from a company even older and more prestigious. Ironically, the title Ethan had schemed so hard to get, Director of the Institute, was lost to him and given to me instead. From Team Leader Song, I became the youngest Director Song in the institution's history. Meanwhile, Ethan, after offending Dean Jean, was blacklisted. No lab in the country would take him. Last I heard, he was working as a delivery driver. As for Miriam, her affair became a public scandal online. Wherever she went, people threw rotten eggs at her. She reportedly sank into severe depression and stopped leaving her house altogether. As for those two, I no longer felt anything. Samuel, on the other hand, still called often. Over the years, our lab and Ning Group had maintained a close partnership during several financial crises. It was Samuel who stepped in to keep the lab running. Some people whispered that I had climbed the ladder by relying on him. I didn't bother denying it. If it hadn't been for the support Samuel provided during those 3 years of the pandemic, I wouldn't have survived the funding gaps, let alone held on to the director title. It was a mutually beneficial collaboration. He helped me when I needed it, and I made sure Ning Group reaped returns from our work. Idle gossip? No way that could undo my career. As for Grandma, her Alzheimer's still came and went. During a visit with my father, she looked at me and urged, You really should find someone new. My dad chuckled and deflected. Your granddaughter is the youngest institute director now. It's hard to find someone who can match her. Grandma glared at him. Nonsense. I have the perfect guy right here. He's tall, handsome, and visits me all the time when you're not around. She pulled out her digital camera. I even took his picture. April, take a look. Tall legs, broad shoulders, slim waist. He's perfect for you. In the photo, Grandma was grinning from ear to ear, and beside her was Samuel's strikingly handsome face. I hadn't expected Samuel, busy expanding across Europe, to still visit Grandma every time he came back. Even with her moments of confusion, Grandma never forgot the man who kept her company and listened to her talk. I told him I'd introduce him to a nice girl, she said, giggling while waving her phone. I told him, You come to my 90th birthday, and I'll introduce you to my granddaughter. See if you like her. Grandma beamed, and Samuel said, I'd love that. And Samuel really did come to her birthday, wearing a tailored navy suit, a bouquet of crimson roses in hand. He held his hand out to me with a brilliant smile and polite grace. Hello, I'm Samuel, your grandmother's matchmaking pick. Before I could say anything, Grandma happily pushed my hand into his. Don't worry, our April's just as excited to meet you. I looked at her and smiled. Then I gently held Samuel's hand. Nice to meet you, Samuel. I'm April, your blind date. It's a pleasure to get to know you again. We both smiled at each other in that moment, knowingly, and I thought to myself, 3 years had passed. Maybe it was time to consider a new kind of partnership with Samuel. Story 2. After awakening, I was determined to change my tragic fate. At the party, Sam's friends surrounded me. We heard you've liked Sam since you were little, even insisting on playing his wife when you played house. Do you still like him now? Countless eyes fell on me in an instant, but I looked past them, toward the man in the corner pouring himself a drink. I was immature back then and caused Sam a lot of trouble. I said calmly, "Actually, I stopped liking him a long time ago. Besides, I'm about to get married." For a moment, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the room. Sam stared at his shoes, now soaked with spilled wine. His eyes reddened, and he stood frozen, unable to recover. Chapter 1. I could have married Sam 6 years ago, but Sam didn't know that every time he missed his chance, it was by my design. Because I had awakened, this world was nothing more than a tragic novel. Sam was the male lead, my sister Eva was the female lead, and I was just the love-struck villainess. Our families were close neighbors, and Sam, like my sister, was 3 years older than me. We could barely be considered childhood sweethearts. Sam had always taken special care of me since we were young. I thought he liked me. From the moment I was born, whether I was sad or happy, he was there. He had been part of my life for 22 years. Loving him felt as natural as breathing. I couldn't even remember when I started liking him. I still remember playing house as kids. Sam said he would be my dad. My sister would be my mom, and I was their baby. I cried and broke my toy shovel. I said I should be the mom because one day I would wear a wedding dress and marry Sam. My sister laughed and pushed me towards Sam. Okay, you can marry him. Sam didn't refuse me then. He called me wife and put his grandmother's red handkerchief over my head, pretending it was a bridal veil. I was only 5 years old, but the moment that red veil covered me, I started dreaming that dream for 17 years, until Valentine's Day during my junior year in college, which happened to be a weekend. I was out shopping with my roommates when I saw Sam and my sister walking side by side. Sam affectionately brushed a leaf off my sister's hair. Then he bought her chocolates. Zoe. Sam actually bought chocolates. Does he like your sister? Does she know you like him? That day, my world fell apart. It only takes a moment for someone to change. I felt like no one loved me. Chapter 2. Jealousy is like a seed. Once it sprouts, it becomes uncontrollable. I couldn't accept that the man I loved for so many years had someone else in his heart. So at my graduation party, I drugged Sam. I took Sam home early, bringing him to my place. Sam lost control the moment we walked in, pressing me into the bedroom. His kisses, urgent and relentless, moved from my lips to my stomach, spreading inch by inch. I was excited and terrified. I didn't just want to have him, I wanted my sister to catch us in this chaotic scene. That way, Sam would have no choice but to marry me. But just then, I awakened. Memories of the future flooded my mind. Sam believed he had acted recklessly under the influence and married me out of guilt. But it didn't take long for him to discover the truth. From then on, he resented me, and our life was a complete mess. During one of our arguments, he pushed me down the stairs, leaving me paralyzed and unable to care for myself. My sister never married. Later, while traveling, she was hit by a car and died. The day my sister died, Sam lost his mind and ran out, leaving me, gravely ill, to die alone in bed. Only after my death did I realize this world was a tragic novel. Because of my jealousy, everyone lost. No one had a happy ending. Chapter 3. What are you thinking about? How can you space out at a time like this? Sam's low, hoarse voice brought me back to reality. His heavy breaths brushed against my ear. I touched his cheek and started crying. His eyes, those captivating, charming eyes, were beautiful. But the truth was, I'd never truly been in his heart. The desire in his gaze faltered, replaced by panic. Why are you crying? Don't you like me? I did. I liked him so much it hurt. I might have been a bad person, but not bad enough to wish death upon everyone. Sam, I regret this. I'm sorry. Let's stop. Sam was at a loss, but his rationality broke the next moment. My sister came back just as I was struggling. Not just her, Sam's friend Ethan was there too. They thought Sam was forcing himself on me and immediately pulled him away. My sister even grabbed a broom and started hitting Sam. The scene was a mess, and in that moment, I realized just how terribly I had messed up. It's not Sam's fault, it's mine. I confessed everything. Everyone fell silent. looking at me like I was a stranger. Ethan gritted his teeth and pointed at me. Do you realize you committed a crime? I know. I'm willing to accept punishment. In the end, it was Sam who stepped in front of me. She's just a kid who didn't know any better. Don't blow this out of proportion. A kid? She's 22. Are you still calling her a child? I looked at Sam through my tears. I wanted to take him to the hospital, but when I reached for his arm, he shook me off. My sister sighed. I'll go with him. You stay here and think about what you've done. At that moment, I finally understood what my sister meant when she said, everyone loves you. It turned out that when someone stopped loving you, it felt like this. From this moment on, I knew I had to atone for what I had done. Chapter 4. Everyone knew there was a crazy girl who loved Sam so much that she even drugged him. I sent him countless apology messages and bought gifts, begging my sister to deliver them for me. It took him a few days to finally respond. I don't blame you. If you like someone, just say it. There's no need to do something like that. But by the time I received his message, I was already on a train to Shanghai. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Don't worry. I won't force you to like me anymore. After sending the text, I removed my SIM card, cut it in half with scissors, and switched to a new number I had prepared in advance. Before leaving, I told my sister that she could text me if she missed me, but not to mention anything about Sam. I didn't want to be the toxic villainess anymore. I was determined to leave the past behind. I eventually completed my internship and secured a full-time job, managing to settle down in the big city. I thought I'd never see Sam again, but I never expected Sam, being so exceptional, to be transferred to my company as the new deputy director. On the day we welcomed Sam, I was completely stunned, lamenting the cruelty of fate. I watched him enter the office and then disappear behind the door. Thankfully, he didn't notice me. My coworker gasped. Finally, a handsome boss without a beer belly. Then she elbowed me. Zoe, he's exactly your type. I snapped out of my daze and stiffly nodded. Yeah, he's my type. The supervisor knocked on my head. Don't get any funny ideas. Rumor has it some woman once drugged Sam. Ever since then, he hates people who play dirty tricks. My heart clenched, and the most shameful memory of my life resurfaced, tormenting me all over again. A coworker whispered behind her hand. Who would stoop so low? That's pathetic. I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into and hide. Chapter 5. Logically, I should have resigned immediately, but the job market was tough, and I couldn't afford to quit so easily. Besides, my role was insignificant, tucked away in a corner. Even though our workspaces were on the same floor, Sam hadn't noticed me in 2 months. I had been hiding like a rat in the shadows. I didn't expect Ethan to show up at the company looking for Sam. Sam was in a meeting, so Ethan wandered around the office. I kept my head down, praying he wouldn't see me. But of course, what you fear always comes true. Zoe? Is that you? Holy crap! You actually followed Sam all the way here. You're unbelievable. Still clinging to him? Honestly, I'm impressed by your persistence. In an instant, everyone turned to look at me. I felt like I was naked, their stares slicing through me. My nose burned as tears welled up. I was here first. I didn't know this would happen. Just then, Sam finished his meeting and walked out of the conference room. The moment he saw me, his eyes froze. Zoe? What are you doing here? Before I could explain, Ethan pointed at me and said, What else? She's obviously here for you. Seriously. This is wild. I need to post this on my social media. Sam's hands trembled as he held the folder. He must have thought seeing me here was humiliating. Zoe, wait for me at lunch. I have something urgent right now, but we'll talk during lunch. He turned and walked into the office with the CEO. My coworkers, now fascinated, started asking about my relationship with Sam. Ethan was about to spill the truth, but I looked at him with teary eyes. Please, don't. Speechless, he turned and left the area. I couldn't face Sam. All I could see in my mind was the image of myself dying alone, helpless, and filthy in bed. I immediately went to my supervisor and submitted my resignation. Since my position didn't require much handover, it took me just an hour to pack up and leave the building. Chapter 6. I had to change my phone number again. It felt like I was constantly running away. From Shanghai, I moved to Guangzhou. This time, I got smarter and asked my sister about Sam's whereabouts. As long as he came to my city, I would leave. I was always one step ahead, leaving just before he arrived. It wasn't until my company sent me abroad that I finally stopped running. I worked overseas for 6 years, going from struggling to thriving. I only returned to the country because my sister fell ill. She hosted a welcome-back dinner for me. Sam and Ethan were there too. 6 years later, Sam seemed even more composed. Time hadn't left many marks on his face. Instead, it gave him a mature charm. Zoe, welcome back. Must have been a tiring journey. There was no surprise in his voice when he saw me. It was as if time had smoothed everything over. But he and my sister never married. It seemed my past actions had affected their relationship too. Some people had children, while others remained playboys. My sister had climbed the ranks in government work and was now a director. Sam, on the other hand, had invested in shares and risen to the top. Rumor had it he owned several properties in Shanghai. After a few rounds of drinks, most people were tipsy, except for Sam, who hadn't touched a drop. Sam, why do you need so many houses if you're not getting married? How about letting me live in one? I'll help you take care of it. Ethan joked. Sam smiled and glanced at me. Zoe isn't married either. She bought property abroad. Why don't you help her instead? Being suddenly singled out made my heart skip a beat. His friends immediately turned their attention to me. Zoe, didn't you like Sam since you were a kid? You even pretended to marry him when playing house. Do you still like him now? Countless eyes fell on me at once. I glanced at Sam. He continued pouring drinks, smiling, as if the question had nothing to do with him. I was young and foolish back then. I caused Sam a lot of trouble. Honestly, I don't like him anymore. I touched the ring on my finger. In fact, I'm getting married soon. I'll make sure to invite you all to my wedding. At that moment, I heard the sound of a glass shattering. Sam looked down at his soaked shoes, his eyes slightly red, frozen in place for a long time. Chapter 7. Sorry. My hand slipped. I'll clean it up. He stood up and left the table. My sister asked when I had started dating someone. I truly lived up to my reputation as the villainess. I lied without hesitation. 6 months ago. He's British. When Sam returned, the man who never drank was downing one glass after another. Eventually, everyone left. Sam stood in front of me. Zoe, aren't you going to see me off? I thought about it. He was drunk, and it wasn't safe for him to go alone. But even after walking Sam to his door, he didn't say a single word. I watched him unlock and open the door. I hesitated and then spoke up. I won't go in. I need to head back. Unexpectedly, Sam grabbed my wrist and pulled me inside. I lost my balance and instinctively clung to him. The moment the door shut, I was pinned against it. The dim room seemed to amplify all my senses. His breath, heavy with alcohol, brushed against my ear. My heart pounded. Sam, don't. Before I could finish the word don't, cold lips silenced me. Like a storm, he devoured my lips, leaving no room for escape. Zoe, why did you lie to everyone about having a boyfriend? You're the one who keeps teasing me. Why am I always the one chasing after you? Sam, stop this. I need to go home. But he held me down tightly, his voice bitter and hoarse. Zoe, you're too cruel. You shouldn't have abandoned me. 8 years ago, you did what you did. You should have taken responsibility for it. He grabbed my hand and guided it downward, forcing me to grasp his arousal. Chapter 8. It felt like something exploded in my head. Even through the fabric, my hand felt burned. Desperate to escape, I tried to pull away, but he held on tighter. The tension in the air thickened. Sam, you drank too much. Zoe, didn't you touch me like this back then? Why are you running now? 8 years ago, you didn't hesitate at all. The truth was, we'd barely been intimate. Yet his words vividly revived those memories, leaving me mortified. Thinking about it, your face is burning. I suddenly realized Sam was rubbing his cheek against mine. Zoe, you don't have a boyfriend, do you? Someone with a boyfriend wouldn't react like this. He kissed me, pulling me in, Bit by bit, Zoe, finish what you started 8 years ago. His eyes, even in the dim light, bewitched me. They made me want to give in. To soothe him, he lifted me effortlessly and dropped me onto the couch by the floor-to-ceiling window. I surrendered to his embrace, until his touch reached forbidden places. Sudden pain in my head snapped me out of the haze. I realized I wasn't the only one who had drunk too much. Sam, no, we can't do this. I need to leave. I tried to get up, but he pinned me down again. Was I not good enough? Why are you leaving? Do you hate me that much? How could I hate him? Even after all this time, I still loved him. Everyone knew it. Tears shimmered in his eyes. Despite all his brilliance, he was now reduced to begging for love, like a product on display, waiting to be picked. Something felt wrong. I thought for a long time before realizing what it was. Don't you like my sister? Sam froze. When did I ever say I liked your sister? I was stunned. Hadn't he? No, when I woke up in this life. My memories told me he loved her. He studied my silence, then smiled. You thought I liked your sister, so you avoided me, didn't you? No, I've always liked you. From the very beginning, now that I've made it clear. Will you accept me? My mind buzzed. It felt like the world had turned upside down. I didn't know what was real and what was fake. He leaned in again. The moment our skin touched, the gruesome images of my past death surfaced. Was it fake? But the pain, like my insides had been eaten away. The helplessness of being unable to move felt too real. That fear snapped me awake. I pushed him away. I already said I have a boyfriend. I can't betray him. Sam laughed bitterly. Why didn't you mention your boyfriend earlier, when we were kissing? You were clearly into it then. Didn't you think about betraying him? Why was his logic always so sharp when it didn't need to be? Desperate. I made excuses. You should know by now, I'm not a good person. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done what I did back then. Maybe I just had a sudden pang of guilt. Sam's gaze darkened. He seemed angry. I think they were right. You shouldn't have gotten off so easily after what you did. You need to be punished. My heart jumped. What are you going to do? He suddenly bit down on my collarbone, leaving marks as he sucked at my skin. Are you insane? I pushed and slapped him with all my strength. But he kept marking me, one after another. I had no choice. I slapped him across the face. Wake up! He only looked at me, eyes full of bitterness. I don't believe you have a boyfriend anymore. If you do, bring him here to beat me up. I left his house with just one parting remark. You're impossible. Chapter 9. I felt like Sam had changed. The Sam I knew was always gentle and easygoing. But now, he was unpredictable, darker, even brooding, even in my awakened memories. No matter how many fights we had, he was never this hard to read. Sam had been hanging around my house for days. And then there was Ethan. I didn't know if I was imagining things, but Ethan seemed to like my sister. He showed up right on time every day to chat with her. It was barely fall, yet I had to keep my neck completely covered. Ethan glanced at me. You're sweating. Why don't you change out of that turtleneck? My sister burst out laughing. She's covering marks. Her boyfriend left them. Foreigners are just more open. I'm really worried my sweet sister won't be able to keep up. My face flushed bright red. Ethan teased. That's good. If things are passionate, the relationship will last. I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear. But Sam? He laughed, seemingly in a great mood. When Ethan and my sister went out to the balcony to talk, Sam moved closer to me. Did you tell your sister I'm your boyfriend? My face burned, and I snapped in frustration. Nonsense. I forgot to lock the door while changing, and she happened to see the marks. What was I supposed to say? That you kissed me? I had to make something up. When Ethan returned, I instinctively took a step back. What were you two talking about? Ethan asked. I quickly looked out the window. We were talking about how nice the weather is, perfect for a walk. But Sam spoke at the same time. We were saying her boyfriend's really good at kissing. The atmosphere grew eerily tense. I glared at Sam, but he added casually, of course. We also said the weather's nice for a walk. Getting some sunlight will be good for Eva's health too. I supported my sister as we walked ahead. Sam and Ethan trailed behind us, chatting. Not long after, Ethan suddenly let out a surprised exclamation. My sister and I turned around at the same time. Ethan gave me a thumbs up out of nowhere. He walked over and said I should rest while he accompanied my sister. And just like that, I was left walking behind with Sam. I couldn't resist asking, "What were you guys talking about just now?" Curious? Yes. I told Ethan that I'm your boyfriend and that the marks on your neck are from me. Chapter 10. I felt like I was on fire, as if smoke were coming out of my head. Why would you say something like that? Because it's the truth. Do you really think you can hide it from your sister? She's the one who asked you to take me home that night. She also follows your social media. Whether you have a boyfriend or not, I'm pretty sure your sister knows the answer. I was speechless, because everything he said was true. Sam sighed. Also, your sister already texted me. He pulled out his phone and showed me. My sister had sent him a message asking, "Are you a dog? Look at how you left marks on Zoe's neck and near the carotid artery." No less. Next time. No kissing her neck. And Sam replied, "Got it. I'll be gentler next time." Next time? I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear. Up ahead, my sister and Ethan both turned back and gave me a thumbs up. For a moment, I wasn't sure who I was or where I was. Sam took the opportunity to ask, "Zoe, it's been 8 years. I know it's my fault. But now I've finally gathered the courage to ask, will you be my girlfriend?" At that moment, it felt like time stopped. I saw nothing but Sam and sunlight. If only this were the happy ending of a novel. Chapter 11. No, we wouldn't end well together. I still turned Sam down. I sped up and walked past my sister and Ethan. This time, I didn't dare look back. I was afraid to see Sam's eyes. Later, Ethan continued visiting my sister every day, but Sam never came again. One day, after dinner, Ethan helped my sister to her room for a nap. When she was resting, he returned to the living room and looked at me. "Zoe, can we talk?" Although Ethan and my sister seemed close, we had never really spoken before. He looked at me directly and asked, "Are you reincarnated?" I froze. What kind of question was that? Or are you a transmigrator? Ethan pressed further. His words sounded bizarre, but I caught the underlying implications. Do you know this world is a book? Ethan didn't deny it. Instead, he sighed and said, "So, you're a transmigrator." "No, I'm not. I just awakened one day." Ethan let out a bitter smile. No wonder the plot is so different from what I remember. Then, Ethan confessed something shocking. He was reincarnated. In his past life, he had loved my sister but felt unworthy of her. He believed only someone like Sam, perfect and accomplished, could stand by her side. So, he left the country. Much like I once tried to cut ties with the past. He never expected me to drug Sam, forcing him into a relationship with me. And the reason my sister died in that accident was that she was on her way to see Ethan after hearing he had returned. Ethan spent the rest of his life drowning in guilt, eventually ending it by suicide. It was only after his death that he realized we were all characters in a tragic novel, except for the male and female leads. The rest of us were just NPCs, side characters destined to witness the tragedy unfold without being able to change it. But Ethan refused to accept that. They say I'm just an NPC in this book, but I can feel pain, sadness. That means I'm real. Why should I step aside for the sake of the plot? This time, I'm staying by your sister's side. Then Ethan dropped another bombshell. Actually, Sam knew the drink was spiked before he drank it. I told him. My entire world turned upside down. Everything suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I'm not Sam, and I can't understand his thoughts. I told him because he's my friend. I didn't want him to walk into tragedy, even if it meant competing with me for Eva. Otherwise, I wouldn't have won fairly. Ethan didn't say anything more after that. He told me if I wanted answers, I should ask Sam myself. Before I left, Ethan said one last thing that completely floored me. You think you're the villain because you believe you're a side character? What else would I be? He gave me a sad smile. Sam is the only one who dies naturally in the book, making him the true male lead. And in novels, the woman most deeply tied to the male lead is usually the heroine. Aside from being childhood friends, he has no romantic connection to your sister. So, you're the real heroine. Chapter 12. I hadn't seen Sam for a long time. He didn't answer my calls, so I had no choice but to go to his house. When I knocked, he was there. He had just gotten off work, still wearing his suit but with his tie loosened. Sit. He was distant. It seemed my rejection that day had truly hurt him. The look in his eyes carried a hint of sadness. If you dislike me so much, why are you here? Is it urgent? I don't dislike you. For the first time, I desperately wanted to explain my feelings to him. His eyes lit up for a moment, but then quickly dimmed. So you don't dislike me, but you still don't like me. Sam, Ethan told me you knew about the drug in that drink 8 years ago, didn't you? Sam froze. Then he nodded. I knew, but I wasn't sure. Honestly, it didn't matter whether it was drugged or not. His voice cracked with restraint. I drank it willingly. That's why I never blamed you. I just didn't understand why you regretted it. Ethan said we're all characters in a book, and his changes caused a butterfly effect. Did that make you stop liking me? When he looked up again, I thought I saw tears in his eyes. My nose tingled, and my chest felt tight. No, it's not that I don't like you. My mind was in chaos. I told him everything I had seen after awakening, the future that Ethan had experienced firsthand. Although it sounded unbelievable, Sam had already heard bits of it from Ethan, so he quickly accepted it. So you avoided me because you thought we'd turn against each other? That everyone would die? Sam laughed through his tears. Then why did you suddenly come looking for me now? Ethan said if we can feel pain and sadness, then we're real. He was supposed to be an NPC in this story, but he's fighting to change his fate. He also said I'm the heroine, so I don't want to run away anymore. Chapter 13. Sam held me in his arms. He cried, apologizing to me over and over again. I'm sorry. I treated you poorly in our past life and let you die sick and alone. That's why you're so afraid to get close to me now. I'm sorry I didn't confess my feelings sooner. That's why we kept missing each other, time and time again. Zoe, can you give me one more chance? I wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. I felt so guilty, honestly. These words should have come from me. After all, it was me who drugged him, and it was also me who ran away for 8 years. Sam, thank you for waiting for me. Chapter 14. Sam and I naturally ended up together. On the day we made it public, there was more good news. My sister's illness had been cured. My sister said she wanted to travel abroad and see the world. I gave her the keys to my place overseas. She looked at me and asked, "What about you?" I can always go abroad again, but right now, I reached out and took Sam's hand. I want to make up for the time we lost.